solid support, but also a sign of encouragement. Much appreciated, sir. Thank you. Thanks much appreciated.
I really love interesting things I can do that get a reaction that don't require props. I'm a juggler and a sword swallower, and most of the things that I do require me having something else on stage with me. And the beautiful thing about contortion is that I don't need a sword or a hat or a ball. I can just... It's just me. So I've got like the moments and the material and the time.
No props needed.
No props needed, which is quite nice. Yeah.
I wish.
It's very romantic.
Yeah. But no, the comedy's a big part of it. I mean, there's lots of the stunts are kind of easy to come up with an idea for a stunt. It's harder to come up with an idea for a stunt that's safe enough that you can do it repeatedly.
Yes.
I think a lot of people kind of, not to put them down, but of to call it the jackass generation, kind of can come up with ideas for stunts and they're great, but it's like if you can't do it every night or multiple times a day, then it really has
doing it.
Yeah, it has no place in a show.
When I don't derive any pleasure from what I'm doing anymore, it's time to kibosh it, because if I'm not having a good time and I'm not projecting good energy, then my audience is going to feel that and they're going to experience that, and I just don't want my audiences to have a crappy time. So for me, it was I had never really intended to be a living statue for a career. I had never intended to be a street performer for a career. So I just felt like I was on a 13-year bender, and I just woke up one day and I was kind of like, this is the phase of sobriety. Cool. All right, time to pick myself up and do something else with it. So I just, it wasn't ever the end destination for me. You know, it wasn't my end goal. My end goal was always to just make good art for people. That was, you know, when I began working, my mandate was always just make good art for people.
Like, I've seen some really, really, really talented people come out and think that they can just do a street show, and then they very quickly realize that people don't care. You can do all the craziest things in front of them, they just don't care. You have to make it interesting, make them involved, and invest their time into you. And that's the real trick with street theater, and what makes it so magical is you connect with people, you make them care, and you make them interested in like some of the silly, wacky things you're doing.
Mainly we just like playing and throwing things at each other and standing on each other.
Sophie's got in baking cakes, does this crazy cakes.
I am good at baking cakes.
It's big cakes. And we like slow walks on the beach.
Yes.
You know, romantic dinners.
Yes.
Because I am in an intuitive state. Because I'm moving at Tai Chi speed, which is this. There's that. You can see the meditation in that. That's the speed of intuition, I think, if I was to physicalize what that speed would be. And it's a very meditative zone. Oh, it's like the ultimate dolly shot as a cameraman, as you know. They're taking you into a wakeful dream. So my act is about trying to take people into a wakeful moment of dream and into their imagination, and to get them to the point of awe where they're like, and then that when their jaw releases, I know they're at a point of awe, and that they're in their intuition just by seeing my act. So I'm not looking for the, I'm looking for those little moments. It's not like a circus show at all. It's a whole other approach.
No, it's an interesting art form, and it's really fun for us as performers. And I guess at the end of the day, there aren't a lot of people in the world who do what we do. So there's, I don't know how many performers there are in the world, and how many do street, and how many do festivals. But
it's a finite number, though, and so it's kind of a unique experience to just be a part of, and especially after doing it for 25 years, we had the benefit of starting at an age when there were a lot of older older performers just kind of retiring or dying. And so we got to meet and learn from them before they stopped. And so now just seeing the younger generation of performers coming up the line, it's kind of fun to be that one to share a little bit of wisdom to them.
Something that I really, really love. I always thought I was going to go into something else. I always thought I was going to go into tattoos, and that chalk art was just a passing thing. And then I went a little bit into the industry and realized I love chalk art. I love being on the street. I love being able to share art with people who are walking by and entertain kids. And that was really, really the role for me. So I ended up doing it full time.
You end up being around each other a lot. And as much as that seems like, and especially with something like artistic, where you would think you put 3 people in a room that are individual artists, they're going to clash. You disagree, but it's not... Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily like a cataclysmic thing, right? Like, we get disagreements, and it's fairly simple to just say, like, no, we're not going to do that. Okay, and then we let it go. And I think it kind of depends, too, on the existing relationship with the performers, but it's one of those things that just, we do this because we love it. Because we go out and we go out for our 40-minute show, and you have never felt more alive.
Yeah.
Then by the time that finishes, and you've got this whole crowd of people that just stopped because they loved what you were doing. Not because they were forced to be there, not because like the newspaper told them you should go watch this, because they were walking along, they saw something amazing, and they were like, we need to watch this. And the feeling you get from that by the end of that is just so worth everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think with me, like I started off breakdancing. I did that for a long time, but I think that with what you're saying, I think the reason, at least with this kind of acrobatic style of performance or dance or whatever you want to call it, I think why that happens is it takes so many hours of training, and it's hard to maintain, regular jobs and then get 5-6 hours of training in and stuff like that. So it kind of gets to a point where you feel like, well, I should be making money off of this. It is like a job already. I'm putting in so much work.
Right.
So I think that's a lot of the craving. And then also having my breakdancing background, it's all based around competition. So I was competing for a long time. And, with every scene, there's always, drama and all this stuff. And I didn't feel like I wanted to win my money anymore. I wanted to. So when I met them and I went and saw what street performing could be, because I thought street performing was just, you put something down on the ground and you just dance and hope people give you money. But I saw that there was lines and jokes and crowd interaction. And there was a format to it, and once I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, I'm sold. And then it's nice, and I think the regular person who doesn't do this kind of stuff appreciates a lot more, and so they're a lot more giving. Whereas when you're trying to compete, you're trying to impress somebody who's in the same art form,
right?
And it's a little bit more difficult, and I don't want to say difficult. There's a better sensation of
it's
showing.
different performing for your peers and what it's for.
Yeah, exactly. It's more rewarding performing for people. They just appreciate it a lot more. And I think with me, especially when I first saw breakdancing, it blew my mind. I was like, wow, I didn't know the human body could do that. And I remember that sensation it gave me. So I'm going back to that a little bit when I perform. I feel like not everybody's going to have that reaction, but some people are going to look and go like, wow, like I'm inspired. And they might take it to whatever, discipline or craft they're trying to work on, or it might inspire them to start something similar or different, but I really that's my thing. It's more not so much about the money, but just inspiring people and showing them things that they didn't know the human body could do.
Yeah.
So
first time I play with trash get in my eye. Second time I play with trash make me cry. I went to the governor gate and I asked Jack for a break. Oh, he wheel right around, he turn right around and he give me a cat. Mr. Better dog bite me, oh Lord.
It's mostly with people that I, not that I know, but I've recognized from other events, other parties, other shows. So I would say, hey, I saw him before, he'll be cool. And you bring him up and he's not. It's always the complete strangers that are the best. Yeah. Or like the big biker type guy is always the best. I always dress them up as fairy butterfly princesses, and they never disappoint.
I think you'd probably see a pattern that there's really no choice. I think now, because of the Canadian Busker Fest being as long running as some of them are, I think there's some kids that grew up watching buskers saying, I want to be that. And maybe you're going to see a new generation of kids that were like, I have some friends of mine that grew up in Halifax watching some of the buskers, and like their dream is to do the Halifax Busker Fest because that's the longest running.
Yeah, definitely. There's nowhere else I'd rather be right now. I adore performing. I adore traveling. I love sharing our art and sharing. It's like sharing a piece of our soul with everyone that comes to our show, and I can't think of anything I'd rather do.
Yep, totally. And we get to travel and see new things and swim with whale sharks and canoe on amazing rivers and all these other things that. I have a lot of friends who work day jobs that they seem to dislike to earn money so that they can go on a holiday, so then they can go back to their day job to earn more money to go on the holiday so that they can, and it's I know that's always seemed weird to me. I'm like, but if you don't like it, why are you doing it if that. So
and the thing is that for an occupation like this, it doesn't take some kind of born with innate skill. It just takes a lot of practice. People say, oh, I could never do that. Well, you could. You just need to put in 1 million hours of practice, and anyone can do it.
I like performing out of state and out of country, because sometimes when I go out of state and country, people really like, oh, you're different. Wow, I want to be your friend. As opposed to Boston, you come back home, you know everything, you're cool and everything, but you're just I've done so many things. I've been on America's Got Talent, done some movies, and I've done a lot of great things. But every time I come back to Boston, people are just like, hey, Snap. You know, whatever, you know, as opposed to when I go out of state, you know, everybody's cool.
Basically, the way street performing works is there's like very defined styles of performance. So there's, you know, you've got your musician acts, and they're very, you know, stationary. You get your roving acts, which are anything from a living statue to a character, walkabout character, and stilt walkers. And then the circle show is like a properly timed 45-minute show with a beginning, middle, and end.
My act is about the celebration of the memorabilia of Elvis. The Elvis fridge magnet that doesn't quite look like Elvis, but we still buy it anyways. So it's sort of like, so it's sort of the kitsch of Elvis. So that Chinese knockoff toy or something that doesn't quite look like Elvis, but we buy it anyways. So it's sort of that's the vibe of the image I go for, but then I take it in. I'm into sci-fi, and I'm also into the robot. So I wanted to make it a mechanical statue that was cash activated. So all silver, cash activated, robot Elvis.
I'm Robert Collins. I'm from England and I'm a busker and I'm an escape artist. So I escape from weather challenges. Chains and handcuffs is my main thing. That's my feeling to escape. And handcuffs, 20 metres of chain, and I climb up a 10-foot ladder to get to something. Occasionally I do more big scale stunts like the one with St. John's, which is upside down and straight jacket escape from cranes or helicopters. Anything like that, anything high?
I'm Sophie. I am one half Dream State Circus. The other half is sitting next to me.
Kind of more like two holes, really,
Oh,
than
okay.
two halves.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah, not
And
like
two holes of Dream
not like a
State
hole,
Circus.
you know, like a hole.
Yeah. And what do? We do many different things that involve entertaining.
Hopefully.
And we do acrobatics, we do juggling, we do comedy.
We do.
I'm the Chalk Chick, also known as Joe, and I'm from Montreal originally, but I live in Toronto now. And I do chalk art. I'm a professional 5-year-old for a living.
Pogo Fred, I do an acrobatic stunt pogo show.
Well, I'm the Great Orbex. This is my brother, Sweet Pepper Klopek. Together we're the Monsters of Schlock, the world's most extreme two-man circus sideshow comedy magic extravaganza.
My name is Daniel Craig. I'm a circus performer. I started when I was 10 years old, and this August makes 22 years since then.
Yeah, my name is Kimberly Craig, and I'm also a circus performer. I started a little bit later. I started in my 20s, beginning of my 20s, so I've been doing it, I guess, almost 10 years now. And I was a figure skater when I was a kid, so it's kind of athletic, but not the same.
I'm Jenny Jupiter, and at this festival I've brought two characters. One is my Jenny Jupiter Space Cadet outfit that I'm wearing here, and the other is Superfluous, who is kind of a hapless knight.
We are called the Flying Tortillas. We're from Huntington Beach, California. We have a breakdance, acrobatic, tricking group. We try to add some live music along with our show with some comedy. We try to keep it as raw as possible and not focus too much on flashy outfits or anything. We just try to keep our show to raw talent.
My name is Ariel Manx. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I'm 29 years old and I am a street performer, circus performer, and sort of sideshow, variety, freak show artist.
G'day, my name's Rusty.
And I'm Tara Bell.
And together we are
Zap Circus.
My name is Shadlan Andrade. I'm 22 years old, gonna be 23 next week, and I'm a dancer.
We are Hercynia Arts Collective. We are a group that does lots of circus performance and roaming events, roaming. We do a lot of acrobatics and special character work as well.
Yeah, so basically we're a company that fuses circus arts with other art forms, so theater, dance, visual arts, music, kind of whatever. We like to collaborate with other people and create contemporary circus works. And so over the years, that's kind of evolved into a lot of outdoor festivals because we like to be on the street and be out for the general public.
I'm Andrew Lopatin. I'm a instrumental guitarist from Stouffville, Ontario, a little country town north of Toronto. And I like to do pretty much, the best way to describe it would be maybe some sort of orchestral sound out of the guitar, trying to maximize all the different sounds you can get out of all those strings.
I'm Brad the Balloon Guy. I'm based out of Ottawa. I've been twisting balloons for about 11 years, and I can pretty much make anything out of a balloon.
My name is John Lockhart. This is Brian Wilson. Together we are the Cow Guys, based out of Ottawa, Ontario. We do a juggling, comedy, circusy, fun variety show.
I had only read about sword swallowing and I'd seen some videos on the internet, and I'd never seen sword swallowing actually performed before I did it myself. I had read about it in books. When I was 17, I first tried swallowing a drumstick to see if I physically could, and I made a big mess everywhere and learnt my lesson about that. But I continued practicing and training with it and reading all the books I could find. Memoirs of a Sword Swallower was very useful while also being full of false information, and that's the book that often gets touted about as being the one with the most information on sword swallowing. Except the guy that wrote it never swallowed swords, so he's just making up half the information. But people believe it, and you know, not too many people got hurt following his methods. So yeah, but I kind of followed it on from there, and it became something that I was good at. I damaged my back when I was 17. I used to do the fabric tissue. So it's a circus act where they have fabric that hangs from the roof, and I do acrobatic twists and turns down the fabric, and I neglected to lock up my stomach muscles while doing some flips down the rope when I was 18, and I damaged a disc in my spine. So for 3 months I had a lot of difficulty walking or moving, and I'd been reading while trying to swallow my sword a couple of times a day, or actually I was swallowing a drumstick a couple of times a day. But I was reading an interview with an American sword swallower, and she said posture was the most important thing. If you can keep your body absolutely straight, then you should be all right to miss all of your internal organs when the blade goes down. And I thought, okay, well, if this is going to happen again, and the physiotherapist had told me I should give up circus because if I'd already blown out my back, then it was probably going to happen again and again, and I should just prepare for a life of pain or quit my job, and I wasn't keen on that. And I thought, okay, if I hurt my back again, I can still walk on stage and swallow a sword. So that was what motivated me, was the concept that if I hurt myself doing something else, I could still do the sword swallowing. But I ended up getting kind of creative in sword swallowing. I got very bored with just kind of performing a standard swallow. So I started creating variations on the trick. I started juggling while swallowing swords, and eventually I had the idea to try to do a handstand while swallowing the sword, and I practiced up for it, and I got good enough at it that I could do it, and no one had done it before. So the handstand, the psychological aspect of that was and is kind of one of the hardest parts with the majority of those new tricks, because there is always that fairly high chance that something's going to go wrong. That something I haven't thought about could pop up and become an issue. To give an example, the first time I did a backflip while swallowing a sword, I did it on a downwards sloped hill because I thought that would give me extra time and safety to safely do the trick. And when I jumped, before my hands hit the ground, the sword had already flown out of my mouth, and had flown about 30 feet just from that motion. And I learned that I had to bite the sword if I wanted to do a backflip. And you know, I didn't know until the first time I'd done it. Like, there are things that you just don't think about until it's there. So you've got to get into the right mental space for that, and accept that you are literally going into a game of Russian roulette, and you don't know what one's coming. But the more you play the game, the more you learn how to win.
You know, you work on your routines, you practice, and then you try it out, and if it works, you'll know from the reaction of the audience, and if they like it, then it stays. When it comes to, you know, I don't really do pyrotechnics or anything, so usually the performance itself isn't at the top of your, you know, skill rate. You try to like dial it down, because there's no point in yourself or an audience member getting hurt because you're trying to do the best trick you could ever do. You know, it's more about how do you present a trick to the best of your capability.
Everything in my show, usually I'm pretty confident with. Sometimes I'll throw in a couple newer tricks that aren't 100% show ready if the crowd's really good and they're really into it. So kind of like all the extra adrenaline's like, yeah, I'm gonna try this. So that goes good sometimes. Other times you might take a little spill. But most of the time, everything in the show is like solid. It's not gonna screw up. I mean, mistakes do happen, but
sure.
Especially jumping, 10 feet in the air, anything can happen.
What about surface? Any particular surface?
I've been doing it for such a long time that people think it has to be like this nice smooth surface. I'm okay on like, here we have like the cobblestone in the circle. I can jump on that. I could do a show on that just fine, but it's easier if I don't. So just doing it since I was 8 years old. So I have like about 20 years of jumping on pogo. So it's second nature now. So I can adjust on hills as long as it's not too steep. or too wet or too slippery.
Ice probably wouldn't be good, right?
Yeah, definitely not ice. I did do a show on New Year's Eve in Prince Edward Island, -20, 3 feet of snow, it's like record snow, so it was more than 3 feet. It was just like piles of snow. They're sitting there have heat, like little heat guns trying to melt the ice on the road. I did a show on that, so.
No, there's definitely limits.
A lot of stuff, sometimes we'll say something, we just go do it. Because just try it, kind of we got to do it. But sometimes there's stuff we'll kick around for 2 or 3 years, and never really attempt it until we're sure we're not going to lose a finger or an eye or something.
Or come up with a joke for it even.
Yeah, because we'll only do stuff we'd actually want to watch. Because any guy can run out and shoot himself in the face, and that'd be the end of it. But if you can make it entertaining, because I don't know, it's the choking yourself with the chain wallet comment before.
Yeah.
It's like you can just run out and put your hand on the table and put a nail through it in 2 seconds, and nobody's gonna care because you just ran out and did it and be like, well, that guy's an idiot. But if you can make it last 15 minutes and kind of be funny, and there'd be a reason for you to put the nail through your hand, maybe I'd watch and sympathize with this guy.
It's funny because when we started, or especially when I started, I get a lot of shit for not writing new material. And it's like, oh, you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And it's like, well, first of all, I'm doing an hour of stuff. So it's a lot of stuff to kind of come up with new things all the time. But second of all, you're trying to make those bits perfect, right? And then once they're solid, like we have bits old bits that we've taken that started out as 10-minute routines that we've now created 30-minute full set pieces around them and full routines around them, right?
We do something for 4 years and we'll be like, that would be hilarious in that bit. Then we add it in, and then it's 2 more things, and then it's a...
And so now lately we've been coming up with more bits, and they're all kind of shorter, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. But then that gives us another field to plant seeds and to kind of turn those into giant bits too, right? So I also find it funny too because people are always like, oh, this is the same thing I saw 2 years ago. It's like, well, yeah, well, since then we did a bunch of other things, and then we circulated the show and changed the bits around. And now you've happened to come to the show that we've pulled an old piece out and tried to put a new piece in and rework it.
Oh, I don't know. You can feel like it's as good as you are as good as your last show.
I did a show for family a couple of years ago, and there was only 20 people, and it was...
It's left him scarred.
It was horrific.
Actually.
Like it left, honestly, it left me going, I never want to perform again. Like literally there was, someone in the audience going, it's all right, darling, I still love you. And it was my mum. You know what I mean? It's like, where do you go with that? Like, what do you do with it? You're just like, oh. It was horrific.
Yeah, the one time people tend to get hurt with sideshow stunts is when they forget how dangerous they are and take it for granted. I mean, I've got a burn here on my lip, which is kind of healing up. That's about 2 weeks old, and that was eating my fire torches in a show, and I eat 6 fire torches in every show. They're big fire torches, but for me it's not so challenging anymore. I do it in every show. It's kind of normal, and I just wasn't thinking, and I normally put it on my tongue and then guide it into my mouth, and I just missed, and the metal end hit the side of my mouth, and it's still healing up now. Yeah, complacency and not thinking about the risk is an issue. You've got to always respect what you're doing. I mean, I've got another scar here that you can probably see, and that's from my fire whip. Just the handle of the fire whip got too hot while cracking it, and it just gently touched my face and branded me. Accidents happen, but...
I mean, that's just the reality.
It's just the reality, yeah.
It's like when you get into a car, you might crash it, or somebody might crash into you, but you're not going to stop driving. You know, it's just that's...
Yeah. I would say even more so than that,
yeah.
Because at this point we've both been injured, and it wasn't the end of the world, and we figured it out, and...
We're not one festival away from going completely broke. You know, it's just like we plan for that, and if it doesn't happen, great. You know, it might not. Injury prevention is a big part of our day-to-day training as well. So, you know, yeah, that could happen. And yes, we have a profession in which that is, you know, more of an issue than a painter. You know what I mean? Like, but
at the same time, part of our job is to make things seem more dangerous than they are.
Yeah.
We train really safely, and
everything that we actually put into our street show. Like there's things that maybe that are a little more dangerous that we'll do in a more contained theatrical environment.
Yeah.
But on the street, you're on concrete. It could be raining. It could be windy.
Like,
it's going to be uneven. Like you
could be on the fourth show of your day. Basically, everything that's in that show, we know that we can do in the worst condition.
Yeah, like when we're exhausted on uneven ground and it's
Yeah.
raining.
So, knock on wood if there is any close by that, you know, that doesn't happen. But it is like, I wouldn't say it's a fear. It's definitely not a fear. It's just
Acknowledged part of the job.
it's just a part of it, you know?
I used to want to be in a band before. I used to want to do a rock band, punk rock band, and all these different things. So I used to play with other guys before, but it didn't really work out for me. So performing like this, I get control over the bass, over the melody, over all the harmonizations. And it was a long, slow transition. It's not like it happened overnight. I mean, I was 5 years old playing piano. By the time I was doing this, I was already 16. So it's just, I'm giving you a shorter version of all the chapters over 11 years, and then 11 years after that. So.
No, we started performing together.
First, yeah.
First, Jacob asked me to come and work the fire show with him because his performers left and he needed some new performers. So I came and helped with that, and then we started hanging out more and more, and he would come and busk and play flower sticks with me while I would play guitar and sing. And
Yeah, we just kind of.
yeah,
You know,
then we were friends for a long time actually before we got together. We were friends for over a year.
yeah.
And we both had travelled and we both met each other's boyfriends and girlfriends at the time.
We're still friends, by the way.
We hooked up when we were
Sunday
teenagers,
school.
and
then we met again in Scouts.
Yeah, and Ventures and
stuff. We started doing a talent show with Scouts. So kind of like around the campfire, we went, hey, we can both juggle. Let's start juggling together. And it was probably terrible, but given it was for a bunch of kids and teenagers, everybody liked it.
Or in high school, we would do like coffee houses and talent shows. We went to different high schools, so we do stuff at your high school, stuff at my high school. And then in the summertime, we just decided, hey, let's try this in the Byward Market. And at that time, we had no idea how to make a show, so we would literally just put down a hat and juggle behind it.
I think our first costume was like pajamas, and like some kind of dinosaur hat, and it was ridiculous. And then we showed up and
I still had the cow thing. My nickname was always Cowman. Like I'm originally from Prince Edward Island, where they have cows ice cream, and so I had so many cows T-shirts. Like that's all the T-shirts that I ever owned. So my nickname in high school was just Cowman, and so I just would naturally wear them when I was juggling outside, and so they called me the Juggling Cowman.
And then we started wearing those cows ice cream T-shirts, and we're called the Out to Pasture Jugglers, which is hilarious because pasture was spelled with 2 S's. So super hilarious.
No one got it.
That was terrible. And the
'Cause
pajama
people
pants and the cows ice cream T-shirts is a terrible costume. So that got dropped pretty quick.
Well, everybody just kept calling us or referring to us as the cow guys.
Well, we did get T-shirts made with a cow sign, like a cow crossing sign, and that was, this kind of look with a cow crossing sign T-shirt. And people saw the cows and called us the cow guys, and we went, oh, that's cool. So we had a cow van for a while. We have cow socks, cow ties, cow props, cow.
And luckily, the show got better.
It got a little better
from where it started.
Still got
we had a cow costume in the show like about 15 years ago.
Oh yeah, that was the cow costume was. We built a whole show where I was being mean to you.
Yeah.
And then the whole show, and then
we got the audience to decide on who's going to wear the cow costume for the finale.
They'd vote on who would wear the stupid cow costume.
And 99% of the time it was you.
And we rigged the udders to squirt, and it was ridiculous and funny. And then I turned 23 and went, that's enough.
Yeah,
I'm done with that.
Yeah, starting when you're like 16, and we started touring when we were 17.
Yeah,
before we could even drive, like we were taking trains and buses, getting my mom to drive us places.
We drove your parents. what was it, Caprice wagon?
Yeah,
with the wood paneling on the sides.
Yeah, I drove
that was our cow guy mobile for a couple of years, and we drove it one time out to Prince Edward Island from Ottawa.
Yeah,
and I remember that trip because a hole opened up in the under the passenger side, like where you put your feet down on the floor.
Yep.
And I remember driving over a puddle and getting wet and going, uh-oh. Like the windows, like the crank broke, so we couldn't open the windows anymore. And
it's an awesome van.
Yeah, we left it
wagon
in PEI.
I was a living statue for about 13 years, and I kind of I was one of those types of acts, and there's a few of them that exist that are kind of like halfway between a circle show and a roving act, where you're too big to be a roving act, you get too big crowds to be just strictly roving, but you don't actually have a proper show to be a proper show. So about 2 years ago, I said, I guess it's time now because I'm getting the crowd, so I might as well just do a show. And then it had the opposite effect on my audiences, then they just went away. So I had to start from the ground up, which not many people do in our industry. That was, I definitely got a lot of support from my colleagues because they were very impressed with, been doing this thing for 13 years, now I'm just gonna start from the bottom again. And thankfully it got me to a good place. I had a lot of support from my colleagues, so I was very fortunate that, I had them.
We all come from different backgrounds. We all started doing our own craft individually and kind of came together somehow through either a mutual friend or just meeting one another out doing
all from the same area.
Him and I are originally from Phoenix or from Arizona. Them two are from California, Orange County.
And you guys moved there, and that's how you guys met, or did you meet elsewhere?
Pretty much. I moved there probably about 7 years ago. I met a friend named Arash, and he was tricking and flipping at the time, and he introduced me to a couple other people, and everybody was connected in one way or another. We kind of got together.
Huge community of just parkour and aerialists, everything in between.
And then we all got back together when we met up in jail. No, I'm just joking.
I've always been very loud, very extroverted, very active, very physical, and also very, very interested in fire.
Yeah.
As a kid, I always wanted to play with matches and lighters, and that was not a good thing as a kid. But I went through high school and I just naturally fell into fire performance, but while I was still studying. And I went to university and studied law while I was doing all of my performance stuff on the side. It was just all completely natural. Like, it was just the way I was supposed to go. There was never a moment where I went, oh, this is what I want to do, or this is who I am. It was just always the path I was taking, and I always had a bit of a mainstream path that was running along at the same time, and naturally branched apart. But yeah, it felt like that was the step that you take after high school. You go to university and you get a degree, and then you go and you work in an office somewhere. And I always thought that what I was doing for performance, that was for fun. It was always part-time, and then it got to a point where we were doing so much work with performance that our workplaces said, hey, you're taking all this time off to be performing and going overseas, and you're gonna need to make a decision now.
Do you want to work for us, or do you want to, work in the circus? And I'm like, that's a stupid question.
The circus, every time.
I have my resignation by the end of the day. Yeah, and so kind of.
And never looked back. That was it. Yeah.
Partly, it helps to do a lot of street because you get so bored in slow patches that you start coming up with new material just to entertain yourself. So there's that aspect to it, especially when you bring in elements of clowning and just having fun and expressing it just kind of comes. And some of it works, some of it falls flat totally, but eventually you find more things that work. But that, and I really enjoy in the off season developing new characters. I like to have a selection so that if one day maybe I'm not feeling like a space cadet, I will go out and be Superfluous, the useless knight. And that's just a totally different character and style of interaction. It is just putting myself in a different headspace. So it's kind of like starting over.
I like being in the limelight anyway, so because I became a performer because I wasn't in the limelight, especially in school. Like I used to try to be the class clown and nobody thought I was funny. So every time I went out, like I used to go out like to Faneuil Hall, I would see these performers. They were so awesome. They were cool, and I wanted to be like them. So I ended up becoming funny outside, but when I came back to school, nobody liked me. Everybody turned their faces, so turned their backs on me, everything, until like sometimes they'll come and see me do a show in middle school, and I'd be like, oh shoot, you're kind of cool. And I'm like, really? Huh? Like, I thought you don't like me. Like, huh? But it was really cool. It's cool when I get that, and I really like that. You know, that people start, giving me attention. You know, I don't know. It's cool.
Why we vary from other acts, one of the main reasons why what we do is different and our approach to it is different, and actually our ability to evolve the show, it comes from different places, because we started with fire. So we started with a spectacle, with a fire show. So it's all music and movement and manipulation skills. And we.
Oh, sorry. Can I? You.
And as we started to travel, we would work the same places as circle shows or circus shows, but at a different timetable.
And we actually didn't
meet them.
Circle shows for quite a long time. We didn't. In fact, we spent a long time
4
going,
or 5 years.
Can we do this? Does anyone else do this? Can we make a living from this? Because we would only come out after dark, so we didn't actually know that there was lots of people doing that.
So when we started to do daytime shows, our approach was different.
Was out of necessity that you changed?
Out of the daytime shows, it was funny because when we got to Europe, we had been doing the fire in Australia, and when we came to Europe, it doesn't get dark till 11 o'clock. So suddenly we had to do a different show. So we had to evolve really fast to make a show that worked in the day and didn't evolve fire.
It took us to evolve the show into a day show. It took us about the same time as when we needed our next meal.
Yeah.
We train new things all the time. When never content, we always want to be
do more.
Going more and harder and faster and higher. So even when we're on tour, we're always still trying to train behind the scenes. But as far as how they get into the show,
some of the time it just comes from like that 2 a.m. thought where it's like, oh yeah, what if we did that? But like this, that would fit after that trick. Before that trick, it would be there, and it would be really cool. And some of the time we're like, that doesn't exist. You can't do that. Yeah. But then some of the times we're like, yeah, actually, that's a really cool idea. Let's see if that exists, and if it doesn't exist, let's make it exist and make it fit. And yeah.
Yeah. So we're always adding new things.
Cool.
I don't think we go many shows without adding something new to the table.
It's the last 6 years or so, it's probably stayed pretty constant. It took me a good few years to sort of figure out, get it just tight, and then I think I spent a few years doing chainscapes and figuring things out, and then I figured if I was higher, that might make it look more exciting to the crowd and things like that. So I got a ladder and then worked on that, doing the escape on top of the ladder. And since I sort of got that tight, that's pretty much been my show for the last sort of 6 years or so. And once you get your show where you it's never perfect, it's never finished, but once you get it to where you want it to be, pretty much it's only subtle little changes after that. Yeah, if I can come up with a new joke, that's me happy for the next 3 months, you know. Or recently I put in a new trick where I do a handstand on top of the ladder, which is an idea I had for like the last couple of years. I was kind of putting off doing it. Finally, I've got that in, and that's me like thrilled. You know, like I mean, to do something like an extra trick to put in, that's quite big for me. You know, it's only very subtle differences which most people wouldn't realise, but for me, if I can get just turn the screw a little bit more and get make it a little bit better, that's a big plus for me.
So it's like the greatest thing about it is it's never the same, so it keeps it interesting, but then it's also difficult because it's never the same. You never know what's going to happen. Someone can walk through your show, or it's a new pitch. You don't know how to work it, and you realize halfway through that you're facing the wrong way and all the people are behind you or something. So it's challenging switching spots all the time, but it also makes it interesting.
The energy from the audience and your energy is a symbiotic relationship. Right. You know, and I'd known that for years, which is why I quit statuing, because I was putting out negative energy, and in return I was getting negative energy. So I really just try to like put out as much positivity as possible. And so basically when I was in Edinburgh, I did a show in the grass market on the spot where they actually used to do executions, like proper guillotine executions 200 years ago. And it was like the best show I'd had that entire festival, because, you know, I'm like a pretty dark person, you know, I have a very dark sense of humor. I really resisted building a classic, what we refer to as a classic chick show. Like, I did not want a love story. I did not want to be like, look, I'm pretty, yay, I'm a girl, empowerment. I was like, no, I want to do a dark show, because that's what's lacking in this industry right now is creativity. Because you get so many of the same shows, but nobody's doing interesting, challenging work. So when I did this show in the grass market, it was like the perfect embodiment of everything I was working towards to create this awful dark show with people shouting off with his head and really, really gritty stuff. And my hat line, I had said to them, you know, guys, 200 years ago, you guys would be sitting here on this spot watching somebody die for real. Nothing has changed today except he's not going to die and I'm making money off of this. How messed up is that? And they went from like, woo, to, oh. And
it's too soon?
No, it was great. It was so funny because my colleagues who were watching that show were just like, oh my God, you're not gonna make anything. Like, what the hell just came out of your mouth? And then at the end, that was the best hat I had the entire festival. Because it was a genuine reaction. I firmly believe that you don't have to be positive the whole time. You don't have to be, like, funny is money, but you can also be dark. You can also be ethereal. You can also be emanate and radiate beauty. You can make people cry, and you'll still get paid, because any response you get is a good response for the audience. Like, if you're giving it to them in a positive way, you're not making them cry because you're, you know, doing horrible things to them. Like, nobody wants to be that jerk who's badgering their audience and yelling at their audience. But if you can elicit strong emotional response of any kind, it still pays. Right. And I think people forget that in North America.
For us, I mean, us being like a group of acrobats, I think we prefer a crowd that's more interactive with us and like yelling and stuff. It makes our show better.
In Europe, I mean, you watch all the other buskers perform, and I feel like a lot of them are a lot more like their shows are a lot more theatrical and slow, and they're kind of abstract. And then we come out with our shirts off, like yelling and screaming at everybody. Everyone's just like, what are you doing? You know, so definitely just a different energy they're probably not used to. Yeah.
I think that it's the connection. On the street, you get a much more personal connection between performer and audience than you do on a stage or in a production. When you go and see the theatre, or you go and see the ballet or a music, like it doesn't matter what it is, but they're a distance away from you and you don't feel like you're a part of it. We can break that third wall. We can walk out into the audience. We can get audience members to come up onto the stage and be a part of the show with us. And I feel like even the people who aren't coming on the stage, the audience members, really feel like they get to know you as people rather than there being a screen between.
Kind of watching what those people over there are doing. And I guess one of the other favourite parts is that we do a lot of stage and the audience is directly in front of us, and we deliver the show to them. And here, especially here with the circle, it's so beautiful. You deliver the show, and just this morning we had, and everyone was all a 360 degree, and it was just so brilliant, and the energy that they provided and were able to come and interact and be a part of and be so close to, and like getting up and talking to the children and stuff. I think that's just an experience that you don't really get anywhere else. I mean, you take, especially with the amount of screens around these days, playing on the iPad or watching the TV or going to the movies, it's all kind of pre-created content that fits a certain thing. Whereas on the street, you know, if there's a child there, we can react to that, and it's live, and it's right here, and it's right, and it's larger than life, and look at their funny accent.
There's great things about being on the road, just as there's great things about when we're not on the road. When we're on the road, we get to meet fantastic people or see our friends.
See new places.
Or go to places that we love.
Get to stay, everything about traveling is really fun, but then you miss like really mundane things like cooking and doing laundry on a reasonable, like easy basis.
Exactly.
Seeing your family, like those kind of things that I feel like when people obviously stay in one place, you just take for granted the ease of living in one place.
It's funny how those really mundane things become like such commodities. For me, one of the big things for me is I also grew up playing ice hockey like pretty much every Canadian youth, and I got to a pretty good level, and I've been playing rec hockey, you know, with a bunch of friends for a long time, and you know, I don't get to go to that game every week, so when I do, it's like, it's a big deal for me. And for some people, it's like, oh, you're just going and having a skate once a week with your buds and then going out after for chicken wings. But to me, it's become kind of like a thing that reminds me that I'm a regular person, aside from all this crazy stuff that happens out here, and those things become very meaningful. So I think that, you know, that's one difficulty, but they're both, like, being at home and having those, you know, those very regular things, and being on the road and doing all these what people would think are crazy or, you know, like really out there things. They're both great. They both have their ups. They both have their downs.
Yeah, so you kind of, we tend to usually, like, we are usually on tour about 8 months of the year. So 8 or 9, So you'll be on a tour and you just try to really enjoy all the positives, and then, you know, at the end of that, the negatives will start to get high, and you'll go home and you'll be so psyched for all the positives of being home, and then we'll itch to get doing a show again and traveling, and luckily then we'll probably be off somewhere else. So right now it rides the waves really well.
Like anything else, it's balance.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So because we have another job. I've got a full-time job. Yeah. I'm one of the few performers that, like, I've got a pension. You know, like
wait, you got a pension?
I do. Don't tell them. You know, like I do have a very nice job at the university, but it's great because it keeps me busy during the school year from like September to May, and then from May to September I've got, you know, it's downtime, and rather than just reading academic books and prepping for my next university course, I get to travel and do shows, which is what I love.
Interesting people. We're always pushing our art, like we're working on our show and always, you know, growing that.
We still do it because, I mean, we love doing it. I mean, I think it goes back to just, again, being middle child and still wanting the attention and getting out there and just making people happy and making people laugh is just the best feeling.
And I didn't get enough hugs as a teenager, and I didn't get the attention I needed from my parents. So
and I still don't hug you. I'm sorry.
That's totally cool. I get lots of hugs from other people.
It's random strangers on the street.
No, but I wasn't getting that validation as a teenager. So I was going out and doing shows and getting that approval from crowds. And after a while, you know, I made peace with the family, and that was all good. And then I'm like, well, the show thing's pretty fun, and I like doing it, and that just kind of kept going.
And we'll keep doing it until they stop asking us to come. I guess when festivals just stop asking for us to come out and
as long as they keep inviting us to come out, we'll keep doing shows. Yeah. That's pretty funny.
I want to be like two 80-year-old guys, and by that point we will have no ability to do anything physical in our show, but hopefully we'll just get to the point where we can just get out there and talk, and then that'll be enough.
people say to us, "Oh, what are you going to do?" One of the things people often say is, "What are you going to do when you can't do this anymore?"
But the thing is,
but the thing is like, we didn't start this career doing something, and that's what we're doing. We evolved into something, and it's changed and changed and changed and changed, and it's not going to stop growing and changing. You know, the comedy comes through. There's all sorts of things that we do that will replace, change, and work better for the characters that we have become.
I mean, I've always been interested. I mean, both of us have always been interested in like old monster movies, and you know, like Todd Browning's movie Freaks. And like I was always, you know, kind of obsessed and interested with sideshows of the past and the history around that. Ripley's Believe It or Not, Guinness Records, all that crazy, you know, Super Dave, Evel Knievel, everything, all that crazy kind of fun spectacle was always a big thing for me. And you know, I was always like, I can't believe how that would happen. And I was always super into, you know, pro wrestling as well. And we did some of that, and that's kind of fun, you know, barbed wire baseball bat matches and things like that. But then, you know, you start to experiment with being able to do these things the older you get and the more of it that you see. So, I mean, it's a long, long process of kind of having dumb ideas and then trying to figure out how to actually do them. There's a long history of it, and I mean, if you do any of the research into like, even the old fakirs, like the fakirs and the yogis have been doing suspension stuff for forever. Yeah, for thousands of years. I mean, look at Thailand. When they do that big festival where they're cutting the giant things in their cheeks and putting bicycles through them or whatever. I mean, that's an accepted religious practice, right? The whirling dervishes, you're hammering, daggers into your skull and then going into a frenzy. Like, it's clearly a part of culture. And I mean, as much as, what is it, a religious trance, or are you just getting ready to go on stage and tell jokes? It's the same thing. You get into a mindset of it. It's just that ours is way more entertaining.
Engaging the audience, I think, and having that spark that will keep the audience interested in what you're doing. And a great performer is someone who can just do almost nothing but still keep the attention of the whole crowd. Right. So I mean, you've got crazy high-skilled individuals who can juggle 7 clubs or ride tall unicycles, but if they don't have that interesting character dynamic, the audience isn't gonna care. You know, they're gonna be like, wow, but they want.
It needs to be a show. It can't just be skill.
It needs to be a show. It needs to be theater. I mean, there needs to be drama. There needs to be tension. There needs to be a space set up. Yeah. The performer creates an environment, right? So that's and the performers have to recognize that. So you can plug a circus artist on the street, and it can be good. I mean, they can have some music and they can do something really cool, and that can work, and that can be its own theater, right? Yeah. But when that space on the street or at the festival becomes a really good environment, like an arena for play, and then that's when it gets really good.
I think what makes it so unique, especially at festivals, is, like you were saying, each performer creates their own world that they invite the audience in to be a part of. And here you have 15 different acts, each creating their own little world. So when we take over the pitch or the spot from another performer, they've left that world, the audience has now kind of left that world, and we have to start from scratch again and create our world, and follow us now on this journey of
music and set up a vibe and set up some props and start a thing and start working with people and creating a vibe and an environment. And that's it. It's
getting the audience onto our wavelength, and then it ends up being a great show because we're all kind of going along at the same kind of fun pace. So I mean, there might be a juggling act on right before us, but our show will be completely different just because of the energy that we put off and how the audience responds to that.
Yeah, and I love the reactions it gets, and I'm not the only one that gets the adrenaline high. I know they feed off it as well. So yeah, and they get to see something special. They get to see something no one's done before, which is also really nice. I mean, people have been swallowing swords for 3,000 years. It's stayed pretty much the same in that time. So it's nice to be able to show them not only what they did 100 years ago, but show them things that they couldn't have seen 100 years ago, show them things they couldn't have seen 10 years ago. And then how do you make sure someone doesn't copy it as soon as you figured out all of the ways to make it work? And that's the killer in the arts industry. But because I was the first sword swallower to do acrobatics and contort, I didn't contort with the sword, but acrobatics and flips and Chinese pole. And then there was a performer on America's Got Talent 2 years ago that did 3 of my original tricks poorly, terribly, but blasted all over the internet, all over America's Got Talent. And I was playing in Perth in Australia at a festival there, and stepping off stage, world's only sword swallowing acrobat, and I walk into a bar and I see on the big screen there in the bar outside the venue where I'm playing, oh, that's my act for free to the whole world. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, mate. That took me a really long time to figure out. They didn't think it was possible before I did it, but you've just, I don't like to think about that.
The busker culture is just a cool thing. I mean, in the United States, it's not very known. It's kind of sad. When people think of street performing in the United States, they think, oh, this guy's homeless, he's just begging people for money. Yeah. Which is not the case. You come here to Canada and it's just so open, and everybody is into it and they appreciate it. It's just like a big, like, cool circus that they bring people from all around the world to perform, and they get to enjoy themselves. And that same etiquette isn't used in the United States for any type of...
It isn't even called busking.
No, it's just called street performing. We say busking and nobody knows what we're talking about.
We spend probably about 6 months of the year in Australia and 6 months of the year overseas. And when we are in Australia, maybe 4 months of that is where we live, and the other 2 months is traveling around in Australia as well.
And that 4 months is like, well, we live there for a week and then go out on the weekend to do a festival in wherever the town is, and then come back for the week in Fremantle. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is that because what I'm doing is really in an intuitive frequency, like I'm working in that speed. It doesn't have a judgment of time. It's timeless. So it feels like I can do it forever. Not that I would want to or would have to, but I could. Just because it doesn't feel like it has an end to it. Where a lot of other things you do, it has this end. Now hey brother, you can't, injury is going to slow you down and say, no. I mean, that's when it's, something's going to, but I've performed it in injury, with a torn ligament. And the healing process was slower, but I did get through it. I was saying the body is amazing how it can heal. But all this is circulatory work, right? You're working with energy, moving, circular, keeping the circulation going throughout the body, the energy, just not the blood. So it's a very cool state of mind, and people pick up on that, but they don't know what to call it. They just, when they get them to, is that real or is that not? That is a point of awe. That's all you need is 1 second to get someone to feel that frequency, and then that's what they really enjoy about it. It's like, wow, that was different. Yeah, it hit me on a little deeper level, that kind of thing.
Well, I guess when I started, it wasn't a career at all. I used to work in high tech, in the high tech world. I was a computer support guy, believe that. And I've always been creative. I always like to draw. I like to just do creative, silly type stuff. And I've always been a bit of a joker too. So I just saw a guy on TV one day making balloons about 11 years ago, and I was like, I want to try that. And the following weekend I was in Toronto, and I walked past a magic shop, and I said, I'm going to go inside and see if they have anything about balloons. And they had 1 bag of balloons, 1 pump, and 1 book. And I bought it all, and I was like, we're going to start something fun. And I started just making simple dogs and swords and hats and stuff, and I was like, I kind of like this. And then I went online and started seeing a whole world of multiple balloon creations. And then I learned the Spider-Man, and then it kind of went from there. And then I just started figuring out how to make stuff that I could think of in my head, and just kind of ran with it. And then my high-tech job didn't work out so well, but the first gig I ever did was for the high-tech company's Christmas party, because I would make balloons on my lunch breaks, and so everyone knew I kind of did this as a bit of a hobby. So I started doing it. At my very first event, I met a guy from Ottawa who runs a talent company. He's like, I really like what you do, here's my card. So I had a meeting with him, and then I just started doing a few gigs here and there, just started making balloons at different events. And then got laid off from my high-tech job, and just kind of ran with it. And near the end of my high-tech job, I started doing a few events on the side. So on weekends, I would kind of be the balloon guy, and then weekdays, I would be the high-tech guy. And then I just kind of ran with it and started doing kids' parties. Then I put together a show and started to figure out how to entertain with balloons as opposed to just stand up and here's a dog, here's a this, here's a that.
I create an experience and then I walk away. Other people get upset about it way more than I do. I've had people yell at me for like, because oftentimes I'll paint over my pieces in the morning to reuse the same space. And so people have pulled out, yelled at me, come up running because I'm painting over my piece to do a new one. And they're like, don't destroy the pretty art! and demand that I put some lacquer on it and work somewhere else. And I'm like, I'm sorry, chalk art doesn't work that way.
We are
Yes,
on
we
the
do.
crux of a huge thing for us, a big life-changing plan.
Jacob is building.
Well, I've built already in Australia. We have a motorhome that I built. It's a truck.
It has an 8-meter trapeze rig that folds off of the roof.
And it's got a set. It's all all aluminium,
Stage.
curtains, backstage area, hot water, all from this truck and trailer.
We can live in. That's also a stage setting.
Yeah.
That also is carbon offset and it runs on solar power.
Well, the
Yes.
the production one.
Yes.
Give us a minute. We're just finishing the interview, darling. Okay.
Do you want to come and say hi?
No. So this truck is we've toured nationally with the truck for the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And since I built it, and it's evolving and changing. And when we get back to Australia, I build the truck into a venue. So it's a portable outdoor 340 seat venue.
Open air.
Open aired, and it allows us to do all the high risk arts in a venue. So a lot of the fringe festivals, a lot of the festivals in general, most venues, you can't do the high risk stuff. You can't do tall unicycles with fire juggling. You can't do pyrotechnics. You can't do trapeze and things like that. See up, darling. See the camera. Look, see the camera. We're doing an interview, so we're going to finish talking. Either come and be part of the interview, or go and find something to do.
Can you say hi?
Look, say hi. Say hi.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I think being a parent and being able to work, but have your child with you is a fantastic thing. And she loves. She's 4. She's been to 9 countries and every state in Australia. And
She's been in Canada 4 times.
Yeah.
Every year since she's born.
Yeah. So I think it is a great life and a great opportunity for her.
A lot of my creative style is kind of echoed partly in my actual sort of active creation, where I kind of tend to scatter all my materials all over the place, look at them all, and kind of place them together in different ways and see what kind of looks like it fits together. So it's a little bit the same with character creation. Like, I take pieces of costume here or there, maybe I find some kind of element or a piece of clothing that I think will work really well, or I have a great idea, or I'm doodling something and that works, and then I have an idea of, oh, well, this character looks like maybe he or she would behave this way. Or I'll just come up with a great gag to do with swords, or who knows what else. And then sometimes it comes from a character idea, like that's partly how the whole Space Cadet thing came, was I was watching a lot of 60s sci-fi and seeing those magazine covers, and I just thought, wouldn't it be awesome if a space tourist landed and had to ask for directions, and it all kind of built from there.
It's fun. It's fun stuff. The key is, they always tell kids, it's like, because, parents are always worried the kids are going to get into it, and it's like, the kids aren't going to do it. It's the parents that are dumb enough to go home, and they're the ones trying it.
Yeah.
But it's always just to do with
because you always have that thing, though. There's very few people. It's like the firefighter analogy where like everybody runs away from that stuff, and a couple of people run towards it. Yeah. So you're not just going to home and do it if you already don't have that little voice in your brain that says, you should probably try that.
And there's so much information out there now that, there's lots of safe ways to learn how to do stuff. And I guess survival of the fittest at some point. Everybody gets hurt doing it, so either you get hurt.
You're gonna get hurt. It's inevitable.
Yeah, and either you get hurt and you want to keep going because it's your passion, or you get hurt and you stop because it wasn't.
You have to lead the audience. That's the whole thing about street performing. It's different for other forms of performance when you're on stage and they've paid money to come and see you. Then it's a different situation. But street performance is quite unique. That when you're at a festival, some people come to see you, and some people just come to see a show. When you're not at a festival, no one's come to see you. You kind of got to win them over, and it's very easy to kind of go, oh, it's a tough crowd, and just push on through and at the end make your excuses. But that's not my approach. I strongly believe that you have to lead your audience, and it's in your hands to sort of get the crowd that you want. And so what I tend to do is if I do have a tough crowd, I address it, and I don't know, just tell them, be honest with them, level with them, or throw an extra joke or something. And that's what makes street performing exciting, that you can't phone it in. You've got to be constantly performing, even if you're saying the same thing over and over again. If you just go on autopilot, it just falls flat completely. You have to be performing, you've got to be on it, working the crowd constantly. And it's why you come on, it's why it's tiring to anyone else, you know. If you do 3 shows a day is pretty standard for me in most performance. If you have a festival that goes 4 days, by the end of the 4th day you're absolutely exhausted, you know. And because it is mental, I mean, there's the physical side of it's tiring, there's the mental side of you constantly, it's like spinning plates, you know, you're constantly keeping every person in that audience enthusiastic and on your side. And that's what you've got to do, you know, so that at the end you've got the crowd on your side doing what you want them to do. You've got them where you want them for that final moment, which in my case is the big escape and change them off.
Well, Elvis is an iconic signpost in our history through several decades, where a rock star has kind of had a status and had many signposts in his career where it influenced music, it influenced social perspectives. You know, Elvis, there's a lot tied in with the Elvis signposts of his music. So I figure there's a big story culturally that I can play off of. So I'm using the Elvis genre, if you will, but then doing my own Andy Warhol twist on it. So Andy Warhol, you know, he had a swing to Elvis. I'm a performance artist, so I designed in fine fabric to say, okay, I'd like to be a sci-fi Elvis, or a silver E, or a cyber pelvis. So there's different ways of playing into the sci-fi, which I like, and I like robot. So basically collecting things that turn my crank artistically and try to throw them into a street act. And Silver Elvis has done it for me for 17 years.
I want to get really good at get perfecting my craft and making it better. You know, this Savion Glover, who perfected his craft as a tap dancer, and he actually made it out the hood and actually gave back to his community also. So, I mean, I would love to be able to be in a position where I can give back to my community, but right now I'm not at that position. No matter how famous, how big I've gotten, I'm still not at that position because sometimes it's still hard to make money as a performer and everything. So, but I like it. I love the limelight, and one day I'll be able to go back in my community, find some kids, and be like, yo, come here, little whippersnapper.
Ooh, that's a really good question. One gig I would die for. The next one? You know, so any gig? The gig that someone invites me with and pays me $100,000. I don't know. What would be a great gig? I'm thinking like it would be wonderful to have your own casino show. But I don't know how, casinos aren't that really much of a fun place. I do shows at a casino in Detroit, and it's fun, but it's also very sad. So casinos seem to be like these great places for entertainers. You go but really it's just a money grab and a tax on stupid people.
Right.
So, but a dream gig, I mean, it would be nice to, because I ice skate, it would be nice to, do between period show at a Stanley Cup. That'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty
cool.
fun, eh?
Yeah.
That'd be a rad thing. Wouldn't mind doing a show for the Prime Minister. That'd be pretty fun too. That'd be a good gig. You know, I think when you're a performer, it's really not the one gig, it's the series of good gigs.
Yeah.
You want just some solid good gigs. And variety, because you can do, say you do NBA halftime shows, and you do 100 of them. After a while, okay, do I want to do another 1,000 of them? You want that sort of newness in your life, so...
I want to go to the World Busker Festival in New Zealand.
That'd
for
be a
sure.
good one.
Be a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I want to do some work over Dubai that way.
I'd like to say, because one festival that on stage just for laughs, it's one thing we haven't done. Just to, I don't know why I'd want to do that, just to check it off the list, I guess.
Actually, that'd be really good. We did, me and Nick, the other guy, did Just for Laughs Street.
Yeah.
And it was outdoor stage, so we got a sense of that. But it was a weird program because we were on stage, like on some big stages for Lotos in Quebec, but still passing the hat. So we had like 4 technicians, and so it's kind of a weird space. But it was cool to be there and see the vibe and hang out with the comedians and do some shows.
Yeah, but just some of the
But
other
on stage would
bigger
that'd be
world festivals. We used to travel a bit more internationally. We went to Singapore, we went to Europe, and then we got married, and then we had kids.
Well, I mean, not together.
Not
Like,
together,
with
no. We had
girls,
separate girls,
wives.
wives.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't travel as much anymore. So now...
We just chose to sort of
Stay.
base our lives in Ottawa. So you've
Yeah.
got the teaching job, and I've got a festival producing job, and event planning agency job.
Yeah.
So that we've kind of rooted ourselves in Ottawa, but now our kids are getting older, and we're like, we should start touring a little bit more.
Yeah, get back
more
into
shows.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so going overseas again would be kind of fun. Just to see the different artists that don't necessarily get to North America, that just stay in Europe or just stay in Australia. It'd be kind of fun to just see what it's like in different parts.
I'd love to do
Probably one of the European
Olympics.
festivals.
Olympics.
I'm gonna go big.
Ooh, I like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Olympics.
I would love to do one of the festivals in Australia or New Zealand, just to go to
Well, I'd
that
love
other
those
side of
too.
the world. I'd love those too.
Yeah, my vote's Europe.
What
about Olympics
but
in
not
Europe?
a specific
Ireland. Let's
not a
do
specific
Ireland,
gig.
guys.
I think we're more about like places. A lot.
Yeah,
You
I
said-
like
yeah.
to travel, but I think for scale-wise, Olympics would be cool.
Yeah,
that would be wicked to do a show at the Olympics.
One that lasts forever. A dream gig. I mean, I've done all kinds of things in my life. I also do a lot of corporate work. I used to work for circuses and be part of circus companies. And truthfully, the dream gig for me would honestly be something like that. You know what, St. John? St. John is a dream gig for me because I love the audiences here. They're absolutely wonderful. That circle pitch is probably the best pitch in the world I've ever worked. It's just so fantastic. It's very European. It's got levels, so you can play on the levels and you run around like a maniac and climb things, and it's super fun. And the audiences are always so lovely and generous and kind, and they're up for everything, and they're enthusiastic. Really, that's the dream gig for me, is just an awesome audience that gets my show and likes my show and wants to pay me for it.
Like I'm not trying to build like a huge, massive stage show or get super famous or anything like that. Like I like doing the shows that I'm doing. I would like to try different things. I'd love to evolve, try other skills, get so like down the road when maybe I can't jump and pogo as much as I am now, learn like maybe like a duo show, some acrobatics, hand to hand. I really like those things, but like a dream gig, I don't really think there's a dream gig. Just more of the same, I guess. Just I'm kind of living the dream, I would say.
This one just a whole bunch of times.
Yeah, just over and over, as long as I can. I really don't know. I mean, you hear like people get like really cool jobs, like, oh, they're performing at this and performing at that, but I really like having the complete creative control of everything I do. And I mean, I guess maybe like a stage show or something would be interesting. I'd be down to do that, but it's not like my dream. It's not my dream job.
That's a really good question. You know what? It's funny because when I started anyways, and I was, especially when I started to realize this could be a career in my mid-teens, there were these, there's busking festivals all over the world, and there are ones that are very have a lot of prestige in our community. The World Busker Festival in Christchurch, for one. The Edmonton Street Performance Festival is legendary, not only in the quality of the shows that attend, but also the organization is impeccable. Anything you could possibly think of, they've done or created a system to accommodate the artists, so that all you really ever have to worry about is just doing your show and doing the best show you possibly can. That's all they want you to do. I'm happy to say that we've been to a lot of these festivals that when I was growing up, I was like, oh, wouldn't it just be amazing if I were to be there one day? As for now, that's such a hard question. I mean, there's so many great places to perform. We've done a lot of work in Japan. I would love to go back there. We spent almost 8 months there.
We've learned our show in Japanese.
Yep.
Which we can't do as much vocal interaction.
We're pretty good though.
We have our script down really well, and you do a lot more kind of miming interaction and some obviously it's not as good as our English.
As we learn the language better though, you get more comfortable and you can do more.
But that is kind of been the new thing that we're really enjoying, is going to other countries for enough time that you can learn the script in another language, and just working on comedy in another, because comedy is also its own language and it's different in every country. Different people find different things funny, and kind of figuring out what that is. And we've been to Japan, I think
6 times individually for about 6 weeks each. It comes out to be about 8 months, but we've performed in Korea as well, in Korean. After we leave here, St. John, we're actually going back to Winnipeg for a couple days, then heading to Germany, where we'll be doing the show in German.
Yes, working on that one.
Yeah, we're working on that one right now. We haven't done that one in a while, so. But I don't know. It just really, I can't think of any, to answer the question, and maybe you'll think if it's a bit of a cop-out, I can't think of any single place that I would go, I need to go there. There's places I want to go again. I just want to keep going to great places as long as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Like here is St. John, Edmonton, Christchurch, New Zealand, Tokyo, Japan, Incheon, Seoul in Korea, like Sydney, Australia. Like just keep it coming, and I'll keep going. I'm just happy to get around.
Yeah.
I don't know. For myself, a group one, it's hard to say. Any big event is cool. Like halftime shows, busker festivals. It's all going to be different, and we always get a different response from the people. We always have a different feeling regardless of what kind of busker fest we're in a different city. So I can't really say I would rather choose one over the other. As long as we're just getting some consistent work, then I'm happy. That's the dream right there.
Cold beer afterwards.
Cold beer afterwards or during.
That's a really hard one. It actually happens quite often that happens, that people go, oh, well, we've got this coming up and we were thinking of something like that. And we're like, okay, what's your budget? And they said, it's their budget. And we go, oh, well, and 2 months ago or 6 months ago, we didn't know that we wanted to do that. But then it happens. And like some of the shows we've done, and we've custom created some collaborations and things, and they've been quite spectacular in the huge, tens of thousands of people stuff.
But then on the other scale, we've done things like Glastonbury and Burning Man and all these really large festivals all around the world that have, we're on the same stage as the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
So I never would have said that was
Skrillex live, stuff like that. It's like what, really?
I never would have said that would be a career highlight that I'd want to aim for. But then I'd done it, then I was like, well, that is a career highlight. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I guess staying open has helped that, and maybe there's something in the universe and openicity of that all these things happen. And so, we have kind of accidental career highlights.
All the time.
Yeah.